do what they are promising to actually implement in the coming weeks, months and years. And I think those are the key issues that will be addressed today.
The Dutch finance minister, Gerard Dijsselbloem, is president of the Eurogroup. Serena wins at Wimbledon. Her third major title this year. After a bumpy beginning today, Serena Williams defeating Garbiñe Muguruza of Spain 6-4, 6-4 for the women's singles title.
And the Wimbledon champion of 2015, Serena Williams.
For Serena, it is 4 consecutive Grand Slam victories. A section of beach in Narragansett, Rhode Island has been closed today. Investigators are checking into the cause of an explosion in the sand that tossed a woman into a rock wall on Salty Brine Beach.
The DEM dispatch office received a phone call from the Narragansett Police Department stating that they were receiving 911 calls from beach patrons at Salty Brine, that they saw an explosion, heard an explosion.
Raina McGuire of the Department of Environmental Management. There are no reports of debris or smoke from that blast. The condition of the victim is unclear. The governor of South Carolina has spoken publicly now on the decision to remove the Confederate flag from display on the grounds of the State House, where it's flown for more than a half-century.
I'm Jim Crisula. Now that the Confederate flag is gone from the South Carolina State House grounds, Republican Governor Nikki Haley is reaching out to its supporters.
I know there are a lot of people that feel sad, and I know there are people that feel betrayed. I understand. I truly understand the tradition and the history and the duty of service that they are trying to uphold.
Haley told CBS
On a mission given to me by Woody Shaw, Sunship, Dizzy, and John Kahn, dedicated to pursuing a piece of our cultural heritage through interviews with my music heroes, this is The Jake Feinberg Show. Folks, welcome inside the Paris Sea Palace, high above 2919 East Broadway. This is The Jake Feinberg Show on KEVT 1210 AM here in Sahuarita, Tucson. Thank you so much for making us part of your day today. Wollamaloo and Tigger too, to the days of swagger and shipwrecks and sound expansion, stretching people's minds instead of shrinking them. My guest was at the forefront of Australian Kool's swing, be it with piano, tennis balls, mallets, or a 7-inch reel box. Joining forces with cats like George Shearing and Miles Davis to reintroduce the world to peace after World War II. And that music swung just like it swung for my guest in the Australian Jazz Quintet with Jim Gannon, who was a venerable bass player with Stan Kenton. Or it might have been with the gravity adjusters like Lee Charlton and Tom Dondlinger, fitting in, hopping melodies and low notes, coming over the crest of a wave, touching the Pacific, connecting Australia with the Bay. Could have been Ron Dewar or mouth organ madness with Les Thompson, playing outside or in the pocket, a career that has spanned the last 50 years. Bryce Rhode, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thank you very much.
How are you, my friend?
Very good, thank you. That was a fine introduction you gave there.
Well, I want to tell you, man, it is so great to connect with you on live radio. You know, Bryce, my first question for you, I'd like to talk about some of the cats who really were instrumental in creating new languages of jazz. And one guy you got to play with was John Coltrane, and I was hoping you could share that experience with the audience.
Well, of course, I never actually played with Coltrane, but he's one of the musicians who, from time to time, appeared on those jazz concerts. On which they used a number of different groups. We were one. The Australian Jazz Quintet was one, and that's where I, became aware of the man himself. But of course, I didn't ever play in his group. He had a pretty good piano player at that time. Go ahead.
No, he did. So you never gigged with him, but as far as your memory, when he was in the early '60s, when you were really just getting off the ground as well, he was really in his modal period. And do you, as a musician, do you remember taking that in a positive way? Because I've talked to guys that were in his band, like Jimmy Cobb, the drummer, people like that, and they talk about Train when he was going through the thesauruses of scales, and people in the audience would get up and say, make him stop, and then you'd have journalists calling it hate music. I just wanted to know if you could put yourself back at that time and how you felt the music was being perceived, and then how you separately felt about it yourself.
Okay, that's my impression at that time, because I was a few years earlier than I am right now, was that it puzzled me, it disturbed me. It was that's a good word for it. It was quite disturbing because it was a style of music that I was not aware of particularly. So I was. I'm trying to put this together. The group that I was with, the Australian Jazz Quintet, they were constantly on the road, and we may have appeared on these in these concerts, but we never had much to do with the individual, musically, with the individual players, except to be amazed at their playing.
Mm-hmm.
We were actually, I often think of it as being just on a trip there for about 4.5 years. We were on the road, and all we did was go where we were told to go by Joe Glazer, and we went there, and we played our gigs and went on to the next one. So we never got involved in the music as we should have. We sort of wasted the time there, but by just playing the concerts and enjoying that situation.
Sure.
And but as far as getting into anybody, it was like other people there at the time, like Miles, and you can name them. There are just so many bands on these different concerts that it just went by like a...
Well, and I think you make a good point. I mean, maybe it was you guys were pretty absorbed in your music, but that stuff was sinking in its own way. When you went out to San Francisco, can you talk about a couple casts that were kind of... did you go to Jimbo's Bop City? Did you get to play with some of the cats like Sonny Stitt or Dewey Redmond or anybody who was already based out there?
I didn't play with them. Anybody really. I was just involved in my own group, and of course I was at Bimbo's and heard the people playing that were there at the time, but I never sat in and played notes with anybody.
Just because, I mean, did you feel like it was a welcoming environment, or it was just...
I was just probably scared to death.
No, I like it. Yeah, no, I think that's really, I'm just trying, I guess my point is that I just interviewed, the Japanese pianist Toshiko Akiyoshi.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
So she came over here similar time that you did, obviously, and she just was talking about, guys that would come in or let her sit in and play. I would like you to talk as an immigrant coming to the States, how you feel you were welcomed. You guys had your label on Bethlehem. You were the Australian Jazz Quintet, but in general, did you feel like as a country we were more accepting than? I mean, we're still having this debate today, and it's become more contorted than ever. I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
The AJQ, which I'll call it, the Australian Jazz Quintet, they were welcomed strongly wherever we played by the public. We weren't always welcomed by the other musicians that were on the same concert or whatever it was. In fact, I can remember when we were in New York City, and we were at one of the clubs there where Max and Clifford were performing, and we were in the lobby at the time, and Benny Goodman was also there in the lobby. and the conversation overheard was that Max and Clifford were fantastic, and they were, but who the hell are those other guys? That's the comment that's how a bunch of people felt about it, including, I might add, Jerry Mulligan. He wasn't on our favorite list either.
Wow, this is so. I just want to be clear about something, Bryce. Is that Benny Goodman took a shot at you guys? Is that what I heard?
No, that was an overheard conversation when he was commenting on the difference between Max and Clifford's band and the AJQ. We were both on the same bill at the time. Mm-hmm. And he was just commenting, Max and Clifford were great, but the AJQ were just a lot of BS. And to tell you the truth, at the time, we may have been a lot of BS. I'm not too sure about that.
I mean, but also Mulligan. I mean, you're painting this picture now of, white cats that were playing hard bop and straight ahead jazz, and they maybe were getting a little insecure about the AJQ. I mean, this is.
Well, they were, because the AJQ started out mainly in the first year or two playing arranged standard tunes, known tunes, and so that didn't quite fit in with the further out group.
Right.
No?
Right. It's interesting.
We were sort of just, I don't know what the word for that is, but we were not really serious jazz guys. We were sort of entertainers more than anything, and that's where the resentment came in. But in time, as our music developed, by the use of recognized composers, Bill Hellman and Teddy Charles and people like that, as that developed and the arrangements changed and the recordings changed, got more I get lost for words at times, but as the music developed, so did the treatment we got from fellow musicians in the United States.
You're talking to Bryce Rhode. Bryce, you're so cogent, man. It's such an inspiration to talk to you. We got a game on this program called Name That Tune, so I'm going to put this track in, and then we'll come back and break it down, okay?
Okay.
music on the Jake Feinberg Show, brought to you in part by Abbott Taylor Jewelers, the Stereo Hospital, Dee's Island Grill, and the Circle Tree Ranch, and we thank you so much for your support. All right, Mr. Rohde, what do you got for us?
Hello, I'm back.
So take a guess. What do you think that is?
That music?
Yeah, what do you think that is?
I don't know. That was going to be my first question. Who is that?
Okay, so I'm just doing some research for prepping for my interview with Bryce Rhode, a tremendous Australian pianist and multi-instrumentalist. I found this track. The name of the group was called The Gas Company, and that name of the tune was called Groovy Guru, and you are playing piano on that.
I was? I was?
The Gas Company. Does that ring any bell at all?
No, it doesn't.
Because in the write-up on the video on YouTube, it says this is can you read that? Can you read that on the air, Jackson? The clip, because it mentions you specifically. Here we go. Take it away.
Yeah, it says the one and the only EP released on the Adelaide-based Sweet Peach label, better known for its folk and rock releases. This 4-track jazz EP is very hard to find and features legendary pianist Bryce Rhode, amongst others.
So we got the Adelaide Peachtree label. I mean, this is and there you are, just playing the ivory there. We're gonna have to get on this after the show because it's.
Yeah, I've never heard of it. Never heard of it.
So Bryce, this is you've been on this planet, sometimes leaving this planet, and for quite many decades.
Yeah.
I wanted you to talk a little bit about a time in your life where you faced some adversity and how the transformational qualities of music helped you overcome it.
All my life, I've been a musician. It started when I was 11. I had my first piano lesson at that time, and I've been a musician all my life. And I've sort of been very protective of the music and my contributions, like arrangements, my writing. That's what I'm trying to say. And actually, I have. I can only sum it up as being totally a musician. And it sort of developed from the very early experiences right all the way through to, and it ended around about the George Russell period, mm-hmm. when I realized that he had so much to say, and I just clicked onto that. It gave me the answer to a problem that I've always had, and that was where the music actually came from, and how it connected logically instead of just being copying other people's music.
Right. No, I mean, do you think, were you sort of in a stagnant place before you found George Russell?
Not stagnant. I was still operating. I was still leading a group of doing something, but they were mainly arrangements of known or standard tunes. The original music didn't come into it until I clicked onto George Russell.
Talking to Bryce Rhode here. Bryce, my show since the last time we talked has taken a hard left turn into the metaphysical, and I wanted to ask you if you could talk about a time that stands out to you where you left your physical body and transcended during a musical performance.
No, couldn't give you an answer to that.
A lot of the cats I talk to, they talk about, they're playing, they know they're playing, but they were physically exhausted. It had nothing to do with drugs or anything like that, but they were tired. But at a certain point, they were going through it, and they were actually on the side of the stage watching themselves play. I mean, talk in your mind about the transcendent qualities of music, because we're living in an age of huge amounts of comping, huge amount of electronicization and digitization. And I think people are looking at it and saying, okay, music is some kind of art form, but in fact, it's much deeper than that. I mean, how would you talk about the power of music, being that you've been playing it, as you said, for 90 years?
One thing I could mention about that type of investigation would be a book that I keep coming back to, and it's called Art, one word. Art it's a small book, but whenever I check on it, reread it,
right.
It puts me into it tells me sort of where I really am and have been, and that's about all I could talk on the level.
Can you explain why that book does that? Why?
Because it answers a lot of the problems that I believed I was going through musically. What can you say about that? It was inspirational from page one in this book.
Who's the? I'm curious. Who is the author? Do you know? Is it just called Art?
Yeah, I can give it as I wander through this room.
It's fine.
By the way.
But I mean, I guess going back to what I said before, what can you, aside from just, the arrangements and just playing arrangements of people and that sort of getting a little bit boring, and then discovering George Russell, what?
My life changes occurred with the assistance and encouragement of what I learned from Krishnamurti. Krishnamurti.
Oh yeah, please tell me about it. This is you connected with him in San Francisco, is that right?
Yeah, I heard him I heard him in Adelaide. First of all, Adelaide, or was it Sydney? Sydney, I think. I attended one of his concerts, and I bought several of his books. I still got them in my library. I can't give them away. But the other book that I was referring to was Art and Fear. That's its full title.
Art and Fear.
Art and Fear.
Beautiful.
And it's written by a man called David Bayles, Bayles. Check it out.
Yeah, well, let's go back to Krishnamurti. Tell me all about that.
Yeah. Boy, that was my... that was when I was sort of outside in my mind, or I was curious about the other side, what goes on. I was just curious about it, and Krishnamurti happened to be one that I read quite a bit about and followed closely. So, my main influences have been Krishnamurti. That was in the 60s.
What was can you be more specific for the audience about what the other side means to you?
Yeah, the true understanding of what music is, why is it the way it is. Why do I play the way I do? Is that all there is? And fortunately, it's not. And George Russell helped me with that line of thinking.
You know, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk to you about your how you connect. When was the first time you connected with Lee Charlton?
Let's see, when was that? Well, he connected with me, actually. I was playing, it was a CD playing in a club in San Francisco, and Lee wandered into the club and heard the CD and asked the club owner, who's that person playing the piano there? and he called me within moments, connected with, and that's when it started. Went from there. He became my man, you know.
How did you guys grow together musically? I mean, especially with the formation of the Gravity Adjusters Expansion Band?
Well, it was sort of he became a personal friend, you know, not just a guy you called to fill in on the band, play the music, but it became quite personal. We had a very close relationship, still do. I just talked to him this morning, as a matter of fact, and he just believed in my music. And whatever I did, wherever it went, and it certainly went in vastly different directions. You talked a little earlier about was it about tennis balls or on one of the CDs that we did with Ron Dewar.
Wollamaloo.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. And as we got, I was sort of trying to get further out in the music often, and he was nearby, and he would go along with whatever it was, and he's been probably my closest musical cohort there for years.
I just, Bryce, I want to tell you, just you've had a tremendous, profound impact. I know I was asking you about things you haven't thought about in a long time, and but
it's difficult to.
It's okay. I mean, the point is that you weave some poetry today, man, and it's cats like you and your music that will hold up in as well, if not better, in 50 years for my daughter's kids to hold on to. And so, it was really an honor to connect with you. I'm glad we got a chance to do this and get this out into the ethos. And I can't thank you enough, man. And I'm really excited to check out this book, this Art and Fear book. So thank you so much, man.
You're welcome. And I want to thank you for getting in touch with me and doing this. Follow up from Lee's. Lee brought you to my attention.
Well, there's also an unreleased part 1 of me and Bryce Rhode, and I'm going to attach the 2 interviews together. I'll send it to you. So we have about an hour of really solid material now.
Oh, that'd be wonderful.
All right.
I'm sorry I couldn't get it all together.
Hey, man, you can't do much with Krishnamurti, man. He's a heavy cat,
Yeah.
All right, Bryce. I'll talk to you soon, man.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
We'll be right back on the Jake Feinberg Show.